Did you ever consider writing a book? Did you say to yourself, I'm going to write a thriller? Believe it or not, our next guest did exactly that. Of course, it was a long road. Did some other things first, and we're going to hear about some of those things today. My name is Vin DeQuino. Our next guest is Karl Milde. Karl,
Hi, Benny.
let's talk writing.
All right.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Well, I have several books in front of me that you wrote.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about Karl Milde.
All right.
Who is he,
Yes.
and how did he get to this point?
Okay. Vinny, I'm a patent attorney, and I've always been interested in inventions, and I've made a few myself.
Wow.
I've gotten some patents for myself, and I've gotten a lot of patents for other people. And I find that fascinates the mind. It's a special thing when a person makes an invention and creates something.
Think out of the box.
So I wrote a screenplay about that process of making an invention. And it's sitting right here. It's called The Adventures of David Little, Inventor. It took me 4 years to write that.
Wow.
And I'm a very slow writer. I have to think about the story and then I put it down.
What is the basic storyline of The Adventures of David Little?
He's a farmer in Vermont. He runs a small farm, a few chickens, a few cows. He has a dog, and he's driving on the road one day, and there's a woman who has parked her Jeep on the right side of the road, and he almost runs into her.
Whoa.
She ran out of gas. So he, as a matter of fact, he slams on the brakes and he runs into her vehicle. She turns out to be a new person in town. She's a veterinarian. She wants to open a veterinary office, hospital, and so boy meets girl. But more than that, he makes an invention as to in a way that would prevent accidents like that from happening in the future. And the invention is, and he actually implements the invention and tries it out on his own vehicle and shows it to Anne Marie, who is the girl. It's called the co-pilot. And it senses that there's a car up there and it slams on your brakes, or it alerts you at least, so you won't run into somebody.
And you know that some of these new 2013s
Now have it.
now have it.
Exactly. But
Wow.
back in 1990, when I invented this,
Wow.
and I actually got a
It
patent
was
on it,
only a dream.
it was a figment of my imagination.
Wow.
So I wrote this screenplay as to what to do about that. This boy, David, was not the kind of person that could proselytize his own invention. He was just a humble guy. He knew, actually he went to MIT, like I did. He was a very bright guy, but he wasn't the kind of guy that could promote an invention. So Anne Marie takes this on, and she has him build several of them. They start selling them in the local gas station in Vermont. And an executive from a car company happens to be come to that town to go skiing in the winter, and he sees this little box for sale in the window. He buys one, and the next thing you know, they put it on their car. Wow. Now the car happens to be called a Nippon car. It's made in Japan. And they begin to sell the car and advertise it like crazy as being a very safe car. It helps their sales, but David gets nothing. Oh. He doesn't even get a letter from this company asking if they could do this. At that point, he hasn't applied for a patent, so he goes to a patent attorney and applies, and then he proceeds to go to Detroit, where the headquarters is, and try to interest them in buying the invention from him. They won't even talk to him. Right. It's the typical not invented here kind of idea that Detroit is
famous for.
Exactly. So at the end of the story, and it's kind of a long story, but it's the length of a movie. He flies to Japan and meets Mr. Big, the man who founded this company. And Mr. Big listens to him and says, no, I really can't do anything for you. But he happens to have a lot of integrity. And so the high point in the movie is when David is flying back to the United States, coach. He doesn't know it, but up in the first class area of the plane is this Mr. Big, and he's flying back to kick butt.
Wow.
And he fires these people that are so unethical in his company, and he does help David. He sets him up with a research lab so he can make other inventions. Really an inventor's dream. So that's that story.
This is a great story, and it's a great story especially for me because it teaches what I preach. Take what you know.
Yes.
And incorporate it into your story. When I did Kiss the Candy Days Goodbye, it's the story of a boy with diabetes. The boy's on the wrestling team. At the time, I was wrestling coach.
Yes.
And many of the things that happen with and around this boy are things from my own life.
Yes.
I knew what I was talking about with those. Now, I didn't know what I was talking about when it came to diabetes. So I researched.
Yes.
And I studied it. Put it all together. And I played the what if.
Exactly.
It brings to mind the young boy who came to me one time and said, Mr. DeQuino, how can I write an exciting book if my life is boring? And I said to him, here's what you do. Take your boring life. Put it together with the what if. And then you will create a brand new story. But at least some of what you write is something you know about.
Exactly.
So take what you know and incorporate it with the what if, which is exactly what you did. You created a wonderful book, I'm sure.
It's actually a movie script, and I was able to option it to a Hollywood producer.
Wow.
And he went out and tried to get a cast together and produce this. It was actually a director, so he needed the whole package. And he wasn't able to put it together, so I got really nothing. But I wrote this first thing, and I said, you know, maybe I can write. And because I'm such a slow writer, I said to myself, maybe I should write stories for children, because they're a length that I could handle. And I wrote the first one. So you ended up 5 volumes. Five.
Tell me about these 5 volumes.
Right. It's a series of stories about a boy named Jason. I had a son named Jason at the time. Still do, but he's now studying for his master's degree. He was in 5th grade, and so the first book is called The Case of the Missing Trophies. It's about a boy named Jason. The series is called Jason and the Detectives. Now, he has friends in all of these stories, and they solve a crime.
So is this like a Hardy Boys kind of thing?
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, my model was a story that I read when I was a boy called Emil and the Detectives. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It's a very famous story. It was translated into English from German. Emil is a boy who was on a train and money was stolen from him, and he saw the guy that stole it, and he was just getting off the train, so he runs and gets off the train, and then he has to make some friends in order to find this guy and to bring him to justice.
Wow.
And that was my model.
And does he win?
Oh, yes, he does. Jason has friends, and they help him solve these crimes. And another aspect of the stories is that Jason makes an invention in every one of these stories.
Of course.
He's a young inventor. And in the first story, he makes an invention of an air-powered bicycle. He rides his bicycle, and he thinks, well, wouldn't it be helpful to me to get up the hill if I could pump up a little tank?
Is that the bike they used in E.T.?
Well, I don't know that, but he is able to go up the hill better, faster with his air-powered bicycle. And of course, there's a bicycle race, and he has an accident. But that's the first story. Then comes he goes to camp that summer, and by the way, he's in 5th grade in the first story. He goes to summer camp, and it's a ghost story. And in that story, he invents a new kind of a sailboat that does win the races in the camp. They race their sailboats, and he, of course, wins. But it's a ghost story, and his sister goes to a camp across the lake. But in talking to you about this, I'd just like to deliver the message that it's all about the story. Writing is to invent a good story that people want to see what's happened
So
next.
the writing stimulates the inventor in you.
Well,
because you're actually inventing a tale.
I'm inventing a tale, exactly. Yep. Wow. And that's one of the reasons I can't write very quickly, is because I'm always thinking, what is the best thing to happen
detail.
next?
Inventors thinking detail.
It's got to be right. It also has to be believable and something that really could happen.
All right, so you did these 5 volumes.
Yes.
And it's all about Jason and the detectives.
Okay.
And then give me a real time frame. So when these were over,
yes,
about how long ago?
That I think I finished those about the year 2003 or 4, something like that.
Okay, and then after that, you decided you're going to jump the fence into adult.
I'll start writing an adult book, and then because I'm such a slow writer, I knew this was going to take a few years. I only write on weekends. I'm a working guy, so I have really Saturday and Sunday to write, and every weekend I would write a chapter. There's 100 chapters in each of my books.
In each, wow. So they're relatively short chapters.
They're about 3 pages typewritten.
Okay. So tell me, what does a chapter consist of? It's a story in itself?
No. It's the whole book.
The whole book is a novel?
It's a thriller novel. The Commuter Train is the first one, and it starts out with a man and his son hijacking a commuter train, and there is one that goes from Wassaic, New York, down to New York City. And the story is about why did they hijack this train, and where are they going to go? All you can do is go to New York City. Well, the reason they're hijacking the train is there's somebody that gets on this train every Monday morning. He gets on the very same train, and he travels to New York City and stays in New York for the week, and then comes back on the weekends to his estate. He's a corporate executive. He is a very, I should say, aggressive executive, and he has effectively stolen this man's invention. The man has invented an airplane that can take off. It's a winged airplane that can take off vertically and then fly and then land vertically, which is something people can't do at the moment. They can fly with a helicopter, but not with a fixed wing plane.
Right.
So what they want to do is take him to Washington, D.C., and have him testify before Congress. It's kind of an odd thing to do, but what they do is when he gets on the train, the son gets into the locomotive, and it's a diesel locomotive, and with a gun tells the engineer where to go. Meanwhile, the engineer radios ahead under instructions from the son, and tells the dispatcher that his engine is breaking down, and they have to let everybody off the train. Well, they do. They stop the train in Pauling. Everybody gets off except this one man, because he's in the bathroom with a gun to his head in one of the cars in the back.
Good reason not to get off.
So on they go. And of course the FBI is called immediately, and the FBI tries to stop the train.